The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
We were in a twilight zone for a second. Well, hello, welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
This is what happens when we have all kinds of feedback going on.
and that's CJ, okay?
Yep, this is CJ.
And it's Monday.
Oh, goodness gracious. What a day. I guess the snow is just throwing everybody off today. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's one of those storms that's just bad enough to be a pain in the neck. So it's a Monday, and we've got, again, like numerous things to talk about. So.
Yes, we do. And can you hear me out there okay?
Yeah, you're fine.
All right, I just wanted to be sure. Of course, our tipsters are going nuts, and we have a very interesting bunch of tips this morning. They came in very early, as you can tell by the timestamp on them. You know, an unnamed little birdie has told me that Jazel is asking for a DCM pay cut in his bargaining ploy to get what he really wants. He's asking them to change wording in the contract. Currently under the contract, DCM guys, if got done early with their route, are allowed to leave early and get paid for the day. What they have been doing is hustling at the beginning of the week to get out early, then dogging it at the end to run up the hours into overtime. $500,000 in overtime. If asking them to work 40 to get paid for 40 is a pay cut, then so be it. I see it as fixing a mistake in the last contract. I'm sure you can confirm or blow this up easier than I can. Just wanted to bring it to your attention. I'm not confident enough to post at this point without confirming the current contract language. From what I got, this was an overheard conversation, but seems plausible if the language is in the contract, which I can't seem to locate. Maybe it's not public. Rate of pay or rate of work. I think it's the terminology. You know, that's one source, and you know, this is what happens when we're in contract negotiations. But I think the second tipster was more interesting. You talk to Ed. Ed is Ed Carrero. He's the Teamsters business agent. So you know, it's cheaper keeping the city workers doing the trash. I hope he's true to his word and the lawyers are on it. Take care and God bless. And I answered with, I know it's cheaper, but in reality, the deal was cut in February. Ed needs to stay on top of it, and while I presented a simple solution to the trash problem, it's not necessarily the one for Fall River. And then, again, from the anonymous person, Jazel is a joke. I hope the people who voted for him realize they have a boy in a man's chair. I hope Ed isn't giving them false hope by telling them they are not going anywhere. It's been so stressful on them for a few years, already always wondering if they have a job. So I said, do you have Eric's contact information? He never gave me his card. Sorry, I don't. I can check if my son has it. They message him through his page. He replies right away. The city council really needs to see those numbers. The obviously boy wonder wants to hide. And I put agreed. Anon said Ed should fax them to each city councilor. Now here's where we get into this again. This is a contract negotiation. And I said, he is in negotiations. He cannot legally. But if someone got them to me, I can share them without hesitation, and that would be it. If that happens, I do not want to know who got them to me. You know, this is getting to be crazy. And oddly enough, Chip, I have a message to you from our friend over on Sesame Street. So it'll be interesting.
Oh, I love trash. Anything dirty or dingy or dusty. Anything ragged or rotten or rusty. Yes, I love trash.
That was very appropriate.
You know, this is amazing. You know, I wrote an article this weekend about the death knell for our mayors. And the death knell has always been trash. First, it was purple bags. Goodbye. Then it was sanitation fee. Goodbye. And now we're going to get into this whole trash debacle again. Now, I can confirm with a letter from Corporate Counsel Joe Macy that back in February, when I requested information on John Lombardi, Sunrise Scavengers, and the unnamed, quote unquote, unnamed consultant who came in and rode the trucks and reviewed the books and everything else, what we were paying for that. And the letter that came back in denial of my 6610 request was, we're in negotiations, and so that is exempt from disclosure, which he's right, if they are in negotiations. So my question to someone like you, Chip, would be, as a former union president, if a mayor or any other elected official went out and started negotiating a contract with another provider, would that be a violation of good faith bargaining?
Well, that would depend. Most contracts, and as this gentleman said, he didn't have the collective bargaining agreement. I'm not sure that I would be very surprised if they put that they could leave early. And paid for
So would I.
hours in writing, but it may exist. I'd have to confirm that, and if we can get the contract, I'll look at it. But it depends. The answer to that is maybe and maybe not. It depends on the contract language. The fact is that, well, the good faith bargaining issue may be an issue in front of the Labor Relations Commission. But as far as the collective bargaining law, if it's there's a clause that's put in most collective bargaining agreements. It's very simple. The wording is, bargaining unit work shall be done by bargaining unit members only. That prohibits the city from entering into negotiations to do that work with anybody until they impact bargain with your union. That happened to actually, I had a first-hand experience when the city decided to create civilian dispatches rather than have firefighters do the dispatching, and they unilaterally made a change, and we filed an unfair labor practice. We won. They were ordered to go back to the bargaining table, and we negotiated to a settlement. But they were ordered. They didn't do it voluntarily, but they were ordered. They could not do that. And going out and saying you're bargaining with other people may or may not be, is if the contract language exists, just as the contract language that most prudent contracts from the labor side have in there. It also has a clause that says that this contract shall stay in effect until replaced by a successor agreement, which means that even though the city decides to delay bargaining until your contract expires, they can't unilaterally just change everything that's in the contract for their own benefit. That's prohibited because you ask for that as part of your contract negotiations. It's been in, I know it's been in our contract forever. I've used it more than once. We've gone without a contract that passed the expiration date many times. This has been a football that's been around for a long time now, and to me, it's becoming ridiculous. And I sympathize with the guys in the DPW. They're being used as the firefighters and police are in many cases. They're being used as pawns. They're being manipulated. Their jobs are being threatened. This trash thing, look, the trash is a symptom. It's a symptom of the fact that this city is so poor that people just can't afford these things anymore. And if you tell them they're going to do something cheaper, they'll jump on it. And if you tell them that you're going to give them any kind of fee increase, they go bananas. And I don't understand how, I don't think anywhere in the United States has trash been an issue for 5 years. And it's like, we just can't settle this thing, and I don't know why. It's like we're not reinventing the wheel. Every city and town in Massachusetts has trash pickup. They all figured it out. I don't see a constant war. This is like the 100-year war. We never stop. But we have another war on the horizon. This morning I talked to an extremely reliable source, who told me he had a conversation with Terry Sullivan this morning, and we were told that there were increases in the sewer fee, and increases in the water fees, and increases in everything. Well, that's changed now. Rather than having, I think they deleted one fee and they switched it over to the other. So now the increase is going to go from $4.29 to $4.50, I believe. I'm saying, but it's over $4.50. So it's almost a $1.30 increase in the rate. So, I mean, we're looking at 30–40% increases in some of these fees. So I think maybe trash is only going to be one of a few items, because the city council is going to see this Tuesday, I guess, and this is going to be very interesting because they continue to just pile it on, and we're going to get back to my myth proposition. This is the myth that Kenny, $200,000 a year plus Fiola, and all the rest of the money guys have perpetrated on the public. They're trying to use the Goebbels approach. They continue to go in front of the city council and tell the public, this is what you're supposed to do. Don't you understand? You're supposed to raise taxes every single year. You're supposed to raise fees every single year. And I'm going to ask them, who the hell said that? I know it wasn't anybody that understood economics, because as Friedman said, you know, and Winston Churchill said, you can't tax your way out of poverty.
No, you can't. And you know,
and this is the absurdity that we live with. You know, I remember, and they condemned Carlton Viveris, and I was the president when Carlton. There were many years that we didn't have tax increases, and the city had $12 million in free cash available. Why would you raise? See, in those days we still had most of those people who've moved out of Fall River that still voted people out of office. Because if you raise taxes without a justifiable reason, just for the sake of raising taxes,
you are gone.
Especially when you had a surplus, you were gone like you had rocket fuel in your butt.
Yep. And you know, Chip, the funny thing is that, I mean, I can remember a quote from Terry Sullivan, I guess it was last year, where he said, the EPA regulations are changing so frequently that I can't keep up with them. So what do we pay you for? A 29% increase in the sewerage fees. Why? Because and see, the people don't know this either. On March 22nd, they had to shut the wastewater treatment plant incinerator down because they did not meet EPA regulations. So now we got to hire a company to come in and truck our crap, literally, out of the city. So not only do we crap all over Fall River, now we're going to crap all over the state. And we're going to pay big money for it. And if you read the water board, if you watch the water board meeting or even read its minutes, you'll see that that's the case. It's not like we're making this stuff up. And then the mysterious, they're now calling it the wet weather fee. How many names has this thing had? Wet weather, rain tax.
Maybe it'll be the diamond operation wet water fee or something like that.
You know, the CSO fee.
Don't choke on that, please.
Yeah, I know. It's just nuts. And that's going up to 40, or they're proposing to set that up to $47. $47 a quarter. That's a $12 increase. That's 26%. 26%. Okay, but guess what? What do they care? You got to pay it. And you know what? Here's the problem. The tenants go, oh, I don't got to worry about it. I don't pay the water bill. My landlord does. You pay it, because guess what? If those fees go into effect, I'm going to have to pass that money as a property owner onto my tenants. And so is every other property owner in the city. So you're going to see rents go up. And people can barely pay their rents now. Just look at the eviction processes at the housing court. People aren't paying their rent. And the courts are just as bad, because they turn around and say, well, what are we supposed to do with them? That's not my problem. Pay me my rent or go. I don't run a flop house.
Well, we've got to catch 22 here, you know, because the fact is that, as you said, and as we've said numerous times, follow the money. And the way you follow the money in the city of Fall River is watch it fly out of the city and being paid for people not doing their job. You know, the reality is, let's look at the water department. We go all the way back to the CSO. Mr. Sullivan didn't file the paperwork in a timely manner so we could get grants. We might not have a CSO fee or a very small CSO fee in comparison had that paperwork been filed. What was his excuse? He was on vacation. What happened to him? He got a few pay raises since then, quite a few. He went before the council and said he couldn't keep up with the EPA regulations. Well, he's a department head. That's his job. You think the police chief will go before the council and say, I can't keep up with the changes in the laws? You think the fire chief can say, do you think that it's a legitimate excuse for a fire chief to say, I can't keep up with the changes in the laws and the codes? No, it's not. There are no consequences for administrators and political appointees and politicians to just keep screwing up. Absolutely no consequences. They have no monetary responsibility for it. And who pays? We do. It's unconscionable to me that nobody ever found out who was responsible for the 22 windows and fired them. That we blow all kinds of things on time and people still worked in the law department until the regime changed. That we're raising these rates because nobody cares. Nobody's responsible to produce a work product if they are a top-level person in the government. That's what's wrong with government. It's the maximum PETA principle. The more you screw up, the less you're affected. Because you know why? You don't pay. You don't pay any. You don't lose your job. You don't get suspended. You don't
lose your pension.
You don't lose your pension. And what happens? Who gives a shit? The taxpayers pay. Oh, hell with it. Terry Sullivan couldn't maintain EPA standards? Or whoever's responsible? So what? We got to scrape up the money now to pay to get rid of it. Pay MOA. Why are we the only city in the state that pays to get rid of its recyclables? Everybody else gets paid for their recyclables. These questions have been around for years now, and nobody answers them. And our council will once in a while mention it, and that's it. Okay, we mentioned it. Now we can move on to the next thing, and nothing gets done. It's time for the people of Fall River to stand up and begin filing taxpayer suits.
You know, Chip,
I'm calling for taxpayer suits now because I'm sick and tired of paying MOA for less and paying MOA for people who are not doing their job and getting 6 figures for not doing their job.
Yeah, and Chip, you know, the mayor made a comment to the Herald News, to Joe Good, that he has to abolish the sanitation enterprise fund because it's never been funded appropriately. It's always been funded by city tax dollars. Well, guess what? That means that $10 fee, Mr. Mayor, is a tax. And Sylvia v. Fall River already ruled what you have to do with those type of things. So I made a few phone calls to a couple of attorneys over the weekend, and I asked them to look into who's responsible for the enforcement. Because if you remember, I presented here on the show some time back that the Department of Revenue, DLS, which is the Department of Local Services, said, you don't like it? File a lawsuit. Who's responsible for enforcing Mass General Law 59, Section 21C? The Attorney General? Well, you know what the Attorney General says? Remember, her motto is the people's attorney. But when you call her and ask her, you know what they tell you? Go get a lawyer. I thought you were the people's attorney. You're not. You're not. You take the big cases, which got to make you look good, and that's what you address. You send anything to her for a complaint against a business, against a city, a town, a politician, and guess what? You got to hire a personal attorney. We're not going to handle this. Political corruption, we don't handle that. Okay? You know, nobody handles that. So what happens? The people in Fall River can't afford to buy bags. They can barely afford to pay their utility bills. They can't afford to pay their rent. So they're going to go out and hire an attorney, which isn't cheap, to sue the city because they're stealing the tax dollars?
Well, CJ, you're right, and they don't enforce it, and they have to be held accountable. The fact is, our state constitution says they're answerable to us at all times, and the fact is, for the Attorney General to say that she's not responsible, maybe you should file a federal complaint.
Well, and I think that's the thing.
Against the Attorney General, because, the fact is that, listen, these people, we all understand that politicians take care of politicians. It's very difficult, but, what they did, the mayor admitting that about the enterprise fund, is a violation of state law.
That's right.
And a matter of fact, I'm going to call my state rep and ask for a legal opinion, because, in fact, if that now if he admitted that, that is taxing in excess of 2.5.
That's right.
Because during those years, they supposedly taxed to the maximum of 2.5. Now, if you add what they gave to the enterprise fund, they in fact created another tax that piggybacked, and then we paid more than 2.5. They violated the state law.
That's right.
So how can and who cares? Somebody has to care, because why did they pass that law if they can do stuff like this? Why did they call it an enterprise fund? Why didn't some city councilor for all those years during the budget hearing say, oh, wait a minute, the enterprise fund isn't funded properly? Oh.
Because they use the Pereira principle. Sometimes you have to vote for something even though you know it's wrong. This is the Pereira principle. She's used this all the time. She says it over and over again. How many times have you heard it? How many times have I heard it? You know what? Maybe if the lawsuit that somebody wants to file on this overtaxation names Linda Pereira personally in it, maybe she'll start to learn. Know what the law is before you vote on something, because you people have no clue what you're doing. And it makes me sick sometimes to look at what's going on. And you have to wonder, why do you bother? Why do you say, we got to keep our kids here. We got to keep our kids here. We got to, they got to go to school. They got to get educated. They go to school. They get educated. Go to college. They get a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, a doctorate. They don't come back. I have people that I went to school with that graduated from Durfee and Diamond and other schools around here, and they left. And the only time they come back here is a funeral. That's it. And they don't even want to see this city. They can't stand to see it.
Well,
and
it is difficult for people who lived here when the city, although it wasn't the richest city in the Commonwealth, people worked. We had stores. We could walk up Pleasant Street, walk down South Main Street and shop. And they didn't do things like build courthouses, which, again, showed what they think of Fall River.
Right.
You're going to talk about revitalizing a central business district, and you stick a courthouse in the middle of it.
Right.
That showed, anybody who thought that was going to help businesses was, they are well within the spectrum, as they say. They are well within the spectrum.
Well, this is crazy because.
But we have to do something. You know why you have to do it, CJ? And I'll let you. But I have to say this. You say, why do we do it? I'll tell you why I do it. Because every month I have a meeting of the municipal retirees, and at that meeting last month, I had a firefighter that I worked with that's 89, getting ready to turn 90, another guy who's already, two of them that are already well in their 90s, and other people from other departments that in their 80s and 90s have been retired for a very, very long time and are living on peanuts. Their pension is peanuts, because the most they can get for a cost of living is $360 a year. That's less than $1 a day before taxes. And this is what they're living on, and people go, oh, you got to pay. Well, these people are, the only reason these people are still not living, some of them qualified for food EBT cards. They make so little. But the fact is, the only reason these people still have a home is because they worked their whole lives, they paid their bills, and they paid their mortgage off. But now, between property taxes, fee elevations, and all the other crap they have to pay, these people are on the bubble of losing a home that they brought up their children in, that they paid for through sweat equity, not from a welfare check. And that really pisses me off. That's why I do this.
And you know, Chip, you're absolutely right. And you know, the other thing that gets me is a lot of our employees who have retired worked in the private sector as well as for the city at the same time. But because the city is too cheap, take this, too cheap to contribute to the Social Security system. If the employees contribute to the Social Security system, if they're entitled to money from Social Security, they get it cut because their pension was a non-contributory pension to Social Security. So they get what they call an offset. Now, if you go to Rhode Island pays into Social Security and Medicare and even a temporary disability insurance package. And guess what? They get to keep all of it. So not only do they get their pension, they get their Social Security. And guess what? They're able to live. They're able to live without worrying about paying the taxes or the food bill. But you know, another great claim to fame. And, you know, I'm not always big on grants, but I am big on this issue. Somerset just got. Now imagine this: they got a $2,500 grant. That's it, $2,500 from the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security. And you know what? To track down scofflaws who text while driving. Amazing. You mean to tell me Fall River couldn't apply for that and get $5,000 for Fall River size to do the same thing? All they'd have to do is sit on Plymouth Avenue and write the tickets all day long. And it's really interesting because their motto on this is called, "You drive, you text, you pay." And you know, we need that. We have more kids out there texting, and now it's even worse. We have more adults doing it. And it scares me. You know, Mark Dion said that this whole trash issue and the mayor's answer to it not only makes this issue stink, it makes all of Fall River stink. We're the only city I know that can drag trash issues out for 10 or more years. This has been going on since we sold the landfill. And, you know, we look at the fact that the city council doesn't obey the law. City Ordinance 2-92 says that you cannot refer to another city councilor in the chamber by name, ever. They do it all the time. They do it all the time. So why should they worry about having 38 violations against them all the time? And I mean, we just had 2 against the school department, you know, and there are several coming down the pipe for the city council. Over and over and over again. Let's violate the law because I'm elected. It don't apply to me. But you know, Chip, if you or I went out there and violated the law, we'd be paying fines, jail time, something. And what really gets me is, especially in the school department with these 2 issues, I want to know how much money did they spend, how many hours to defend these 38 complaints when they were warned. Just like the school department gets warned, the city council gets warned, the boards get warned. They get a phone call. I know some of the people who file the complaints, including myself. We call and say, this could be a violation. And you know what you're told? I was told outside this door, right here, file the complaint. You know, really? You want to shoot the messenger? Why don't you listen to the message? I don't care if you like me. I don't care if they like you, Chip. If you have some very valid points. They want to say, file the complaint. What are you going to do, Chip? Really?
Yeah, you know, go ahead.
Yep.
You know, it's like, that's the way it is. But
Yep.
you know, be angry. Let's watch what the city council does with these increases.
Yeah, tomorrow. And by the way, people, today at BCC from 12 to 3 is a job fair. If you need a job, come out here and take a peek. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on Wednesday.
And stay really angry this week.